Maybank preferred the sounds of the wind and waves over the strident sounds of human voices, especially on news channels. He could hear the faint, rushing sounds of the Gulf of Mexico behind him, but he could imagine the sounds that went along with the images on the large TV screen. He could almost hear the screaming without turning up the volume. He shook himself out of the trance that felt longer than it probably was, and found himself lunging for the remote. The volume popped on as soon as his finger hit the button, and the screaming matched his imagination. The scene that filled the entire TV was chaos. It was a national 24-hour news channel, so he didn't expect to see a local broadcast. He considered a local broadcast anything that came from Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana. Texas wasn't local. The chaos he was watching could have been anywhere, but he was fairly sure it was New York. Smoke was casting a gray and black shroud over cars, buildings, and people. The people were darting in and out of the smoke. "That's not entirely true," he mouthed. "Some of them aren't darting. They're just standing around watching, and when people run into them, they grab the running people and bite them wherever they can." Maybank shook his head from side to side. He told himself to shut up and just watch. Two women were standing next to each other. There was something unnatural about the way they were standing. One of them was leaning to the right and was almost leaning on the other woman. When the smoke cleared away from them, Maybank saw that the woman was missing her right foot from the ankle down. They were oblivious to the smoke that swirled away from them and then back into their faces. It didn't seem to bother them at all. "Why should it?" mouthed Maybank. "What's a little smoke when you're missing a foot?" He grimaced at his inability to stop talking to himself, but at the same time he considered the possibility that he might start doing it more often in light of the broadcast he was watching. A car burst through the smoke and hit the leaning woman head-on. The force launched her into the smoke so fast that the yelp that escaped Maybank's lips was well after she disappeared. The other woman didn't seem to notice that her friend was hit by a car, but she did notice the man that jumped from the front passenger seat. He fell to the pavement as he tripped over something, and she fell on his back with her teeth bared. Maybank didn't understand why she fell, but he was smart enough to understand that she really was biting the side of the man's head. She lifted her head away from his, ripping off the man's right ear and a long strip of skin from his hairline to his lips. The man's pain was undeniable, and his scream rose above the other chaotic sounds in the street. The red blood stood out in stark contrast to the gray and black smoke. The driver of the car was a woman, and Maybank could see she was turning the wheel and backing away from the place where her companion had jumped from the car. She was paying so little attention to her friend that she didn't notice someone else had climbed in through the open passenger door. The car backed up, stopped, and then backed away into the smoke. Maybank's eyes were glued to the spot where it had disappeared, so he was still watching when the car slowly rolled into view for a second time. The driver's side door was open, and no one was behind the wheel. He was still watching the car when it occurred to him there was a voice coming through the speakers. It had been there all along, but he had to mentally tune in to what was being said. A reporter in the studio was describing the scene, but the smoke was apparently too boring because he asked someone if they had a better view. The producer was happy to oblige, and the scene switched to another city. This time the historic landmarks of Washington, D.C. made the scene more recognizable, but there was nothing familiar about a group of people on their knees, biting a jerking body that was stretched out on the sidewalk. The cameraman who was filming the attack was yelling something at a reporter who kept asking him if he was getting the shot. The camera jerked almost as much as the victim on the sidewalk as the cameraman shoved it into the hands of the reporter. Maybank heard him clearly when he yelled, "You want that shot? Go get it!" The camera was heavy, so the end result was a good shot of the sky. Then there was a view of the retreating cameraman's back. The reporter kept talking into her microphone as she turned the heavy camera back toward the original subjects of her report, and when she finally got it pointed in their direction, she was surprised to find they were no longer shredding the man on the sidewalk. They were standing in front of her. Her screams were cut short as the entire group, attackers and victim, fell onto